So let's have a look from the demo, polygonjs.com/demo, at the examples. So when you click on the example, you can have this window that appears, which has a list of thumbnails, which are the currently released examples. There are not many. That list will increase quickly, hopefully, showcasing various features of Polygon. Right now, you have it covers mostly materials and physics and shadows, and adding behaviors to object, very tiny behaviors. So you can access the examples this way, or you can also go to docs examples, and you can have a list as well like that, and it will load them in the editor the same way that we are going to do it here. Except that when you load them from the demo, there is one difference compared to here, which is that it will add them to your scene. So here in that default scene, we had this box here, which I can then bypass, and then we only see the node object created by the example. So if I go back to the subnet, which by the way I can press W to enter a subnet, or I can press S, S to go out. It basically uses the WSD keys to navigate. So A goes back, D goes forward in the history, and I can press enter and out. And what I'm going to do actually is display the hotkeys that I press, so you can see them at the bottom right of the screen, so that since I may forget to explain what I press, at least you will always see them there. So here is the node that creates those objects. So you have the box, and previously in the previous video you could see that I created one box node to create a box in the scene, one plane node to create one plane. So basically it was one node created one object. This doesn't have to be like that. This would be a very limited way of creating a scene. So in that case we have the copy node that is basically duplicating the box, and so I can simply increase the count of boxes that this node creates. I can move them, I can rotate them, I can even scale them, so I can do a variety of operations. So I'm just going to reset this. I'm going to put it back like this, back to 3. So a copy node is a good way to duplicate objects, for instance. And then we are editing materials. We are assigning material to each box. So if I was to display so just this box, then there is only one. If I was to display this node, now I'm pressing 1, and there is the output of the copy node, and the boxes that are created have the default material. They have this bluish color, and then those materials are assigning one after the other the material to the boxes. So by default, if I was to create a material, well, let me create it from scratch. Material, create it, plug it here. So by default it will create an error, so I have to select a material. So I realize it says input error, which is probably input error for that one, but this one has reference node not found, which means I need to select a node which would select the material that it uses. So I will go here, I will pick one of those 3 materials, and now I have assigned it like this. And I can see that the materials are in that path, so I can follow that arrow here to see where they are, which is basically subcolor matte, which is where I was. So I can always also select the matte node, press W and enter, and I see the three materials. I can change the color of it. This is what it will look like. So that assigned the material to all 3 boxes, but I can specify which box I want. There are multiple ways to specify which box I will assign. In that case, because the boxes do not have a name, they do not have a group, I only have indices to assign them. So I can say assign to the 1, assign to the index 2, or to the index 1 or 2. That's pretty much all I can do. That said, when I say I don't have the name, they do have a name. They have box 1, but they have the same name, so I cannot isolate that in any way with this configuration. And by the way, I have not mentioned that we have the middle click to inspect what a node creates, and it gives a variety of information. In the previous video, I was saying that the scene graph panel is very good to see the scene graph that all the nodes create, but it's very useful at any point to debug to see what a specific node creates. So here, if I middle click on the box node, I can see that it creates a single object, one box. If I middle click on the copy one, you can see that it creates all 3 objects. And I see the same information that you see here. It's a box called box 1. It's called triangle. It is not called triangle. It is a triangle. It is made of triangles, and that's why we'll see in future video that there are different types of geometries. There is triangle is the most common one. There is segment for line. There is points, usually for particles. But there are quads, and there are a few more which I will explain later. And this list basically will give you some clues about what we can use to model objects or create interesting scenes. Each geometry types has their pros and cons, and they all can be used in different situations. So I can select which one I use, which is basically how this one does it. That's how you assign different material to different objects. So for instance, if I did not have an index on this one, it would basically override what the previous nodes had done. So which is why it needs to be 2, not 3. Another way to inspect your scene. So here I do not see any material assignment. I see what the objects are, but I do not see what their material is. But I do see that there is some attributes on the object. So again, if I go back up here, I do not see the same attribute. I see P, N, and UV, which are position, normals, and UV, which are classic geometry attributes, and the name, which is box 1. And if I was to select that and go to the spreadsheet, where I can see all the point positions, I can see the positions, the normal, the UVs, and I can also go to the box and I can see the the object, and I can see the object attribute, and I can see the name, and here I can see the box 1. If I was to select the copy node, I can see the 3 boxes, and each has that name. And if I select the material, I can see that the material has added other attributes, and one being the material node, and it says which material is being used. And there is a bug where you should be able to stretch that column to see the full path. That is not done yet. And then once I've selected, once we arrive at the last material, all the objects have the same have their attributes set. So there is 2 ways, well 3 ways now to inspect what a scene has. We have the scene graph, we have the node info panel for one specific node, and the spreadsheet. Those are very common tool to use. I use them pretty much on every scene to see what nodes produce, so that I understand what's happening here and why.